Season's on the line. We need your best effort. This is it. And then that's the performance that they put forth.
But the one thing that I know the 49ers need to change about their franchise is their no content creator, John, will be going to the postseason this year because the 49ers are not going. A dreadful, dreadful evening for Kyle Shanahan, his offense, his quarterback, his offensive line. And Deebo Samuel is
major problem.
Without a doubt, the turkey of the night. I mean, without a doubt, Mr. It ain't me, it's you guys. And Kyle went out of his way to force feed him a ball in a way where you didn't see Kittle. I mean, how can Deebo Samuel lead the team in targets tonight? He had 7 and George Kittle had 7. What in God's name are you throwing to those two guys in equal amounts for? One is here to play. The other is here not to play.
I think Brock may have gotten influenced. I think there was a couple of plays where he was clearly not open, and I think Brock got influenced, and it got in his head that I got to get Deebo involved and all that kind of stuff. So what Deebo said might have worked, but there's just no excuse for the two plays that lost him this game. And there's a ton of plays in a game, but Deebo dropping the slant that probably is a touchdown midway through the third quarter, and Brock's decision on a bracketed Juwan Jennings down the right sideline, deciding to make that throw, which was intercepted, and they never really had another chance because the Rams went down the field, took all the clock, kicked another field goal to make a 3-point game, a 6-point game. Therefore, they needed a touchdown, and obviously, as we saw in that final play, he didn't even get the Hail Mary pass off. And to your point of, which I think is the most salient point of the night, which is, this was their playoff game, DB. Not that I think they were going to get to the playoffs, because it was going to happen. Next week, they were going to lose in Miami. The week after, they were going to lose to the Lions. They play the Cardinals at the end, whatever. So this was going to happen at some point. It just happened faster than we thought. But keep in mind, this was the performance that the offense gave you, especially in the second half when the weather cleared up a little bit, when your season was on the line. Hey, guys, season's on the line. We need your best effort. This is it. This is like the Super Bowl against Kansas City. If we don't win, we're done. Gotcha, Kyle. And then that's the performance that they put forth. Give the defense a ton of credit. Hell, even the special teams wasn't bad because Moody made a couple of long kicks. But offensively, just that's what the offense did all night long. And in the final play of the game where Moore and McKivitz were absolutely bombed by the ends for the Rams, so much so that they couldn't even get a Hail Mary pass off.
You know, it was just a wildly disappointing performance. There's a lot of blame to go around. And again, this game, it's almost the perfect encapsulation of the entire season in the one game that we just watched. Frustration everywhere. Rob, again, saying, all kidding aside, Brock needs to develop some chemistry with Pearsall and swap Deebo for Cowing in the final 3 games. See, I would do that. I think I would. I would basically tell Deebo, we've seen enough. And I don't know if we want you, dealing with some sort of injury that could take away our ability to make a decision on you this season. I might ask Deebo to sit down the rest of the year and just say, Jacob Cowing, whether you're ready or not, you're in. We need to see what you can do.
DB, to your point, if he gets hurt in these last couple of games, and we've seen this before, and he can't pass a physical, that same thing happened with Jimmy Garoppolo a number of years ago, then you can't cut the guy. You can't. So that's a great point. And I wouldn't be surprised if it happened. All of a sudden he's got a phantom injury, this, that, or the other, some sort of a tendonitis or whatever, because look, you're 6-8 and you're out of it. You're going to Miami, probably not winning that game. You're going to Detroit, or you got Detroit at home. You're not winning that game. So, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. They got 8 losses. I wouldn't be surprised if they had 10 losses, that this was a 7-10 team, which I think in 2020, weren't they a 6-10 team after that Super Bowl? There were 16 games back then. So I think they were 6-10 that year. So it mirrors it, but it doesn't take away from the point of what you just said here, where you're playing for your life at home against a division rival. And if you win the game, because I'm not convinced, I'm not sold on Seattle. Seattle's 8-5, and McDonald's done a great job with that defense, but Arizona's not good. The Rams are okay. We saw that, Stafford was probably the difference tonight, but they're not all that great. So it's not like these teams were going to run the table the rest of the way. If you had won tonight and at least gone to 7-7, I'm not saying you win the division, but I'm saying you give yourself an opportunity, and they decided that was the best effort they were going to give. Weather's a factor, I'll give them that. But in the second half, we saw it. It wasn't as big of a factor. The Rams pulled it together, and Brock played horrendous all night. Deebo, when you talk like that, man, I don't care what you do for a living. You talk like that, you better back it up. And you drop the biggest play of the game was his drop. And as you pointed out, it's I'm not getting the ball. It ain't my fault. I'm not getting the ball. You got one right in the breadbasket, dude.
Yeah. I'll say this, John, what can you really learn from a year and pull it into another year? Because these years aren't connected. Weeks aren't connected anymore in the NFL. They're like 17 standalone performances that have almost nothing to do with the other. So I don't know how much continuity you can bring or how many lessons you can carry over. But the one thing that I know the 49ers need to change about their franchise is their slow way of doing business with players that they might re-sign. Like they knew that Trent Williams was coming back. Mm-hmm. So you get that deal struck quickly and get one of your best players in. I understand why the Brandon Ayuk situation took a little time to figure out. But there was no doubt about Trent Williams. Why was that an off-season long holdout? And I just think that the 49ers need to rethink the way they engage contract extensions. And, I don't need to see any more George Kittle sitting on the Rich Eisen show set saying, like, this is just the way the Niners do business. The way the Niners did business, cut their legs off to compete early in the season. And if you're asking where the season was lost, it was lost early in the season. They needed to bank wins that they didn't.
Yeah, and I think you hit it right in the head as we go back. And I know that this season is going to be dissected and there's going to be lots of different things that people are going to talk about. But you're right. It started with Brandon Ayuk and it started with Trent Williams. And their philosophy has always been, we're going to wait them out. Look at all those contracts that a lot of these guys that they drafted, developed, and re-signed. They were signed in August, September. Bosa, September 6th. Kittle was in August. Warner was in August. Like you go down the line, that is their MO. And they got to change it. Like you said, it's kind of like Boris this offseason. It took so long to get all these guys done, and all of a sudden Blake Snell's signing with the Dodgers, all this kind of stuff. It's like, get these deals done. Get these guys in here. And to the guy who made the person who made the point about Pearsall, I'm not going to give up on him now, but he had injuries through camp. He has the shooting, all those kind of things. He hasn't thrown with Brock. They have not. And we saw even when Brandon Ayuk came back for the short period he did after the holdout, they weren't on the same page. You got to do it again and again and again. You can't take time off like they had to with Purdy and Ayuk. This offense has got to get together in the offseason, get everybody together, throw the ball around, get going, get healthy, whatever it is, because this ain't it. And it's embarrassing that a Kyle Shanahan offense loses a game to the Rams 12-6. It's ridiculous. And
absolutely.
You and I said this. Put Kyle in the blame column. Get you and Kruger out of it. Kyle's in the blame column. You can't have this kind of offensive performance. I know the rain was there. I know Brock, players play, coaches coach, and Brock made some bad decisions and Deebo had a drop, but Kyle Shanahan didn't call a good game either. He wasn't nearly as aggressive enough.
As much as they were in their bag last week, there were no bags to be found this week. 38 carries for the Rams tonight. Kyren Williams had 29 of them for 108 yards. And this is the exact same thing that sort of worked in the favor of the Rams last week. They didn't have much success running the ball, but they committed to it. They ran it 42 times against the Buffalo Bills. And tonight, with not an awful lot of success, they ran the ball an awful lot against the 49ers. And by the time the third quarter came around, they started finding success in their running game. And it was the third quarter, that long drive in the third, where this game really got decided.
And we said this early, DB. We said this early, which is the Rams have become the Niners in that they built a big offensive line. Kyren Williams is a physical running back. He can break tackles. When Kyle has over 30 carries, he wins 80% of the time. The Rams ran at 38 and the Niners ran at 19, and you wouldn't even have to look at the scoreboard. That's not what you want. Brock went 14 of 31, so they threw it 31 and they ran at 19. When does the Kyle Shanahan team win that game? They
right.
don't.
It just doesn't happen. What's been really frustrating about this year is every aspect of the 49ers, when you go to the stats to sort of try to muck them through the stats, they're right in the middle on a lot of things. But being in the middle does also represent massive regression. Now, the offensive line, in a weird way, because of Pooney, I thought has even played a little bit better than it did last year, but they're just not getting those results because Christian McCaffrey hasn't been out there. The offensive line needs reinvestment, and the defensive line absolutely needs reinvestment. And Nick Bosa, since signing the mega deal, and I know he gets his pressures, he's not paid for pressure. He's paid for sacks. And I think that, in order to understand whether Nick Bosa had a good game or not, to have to open up Pro Football Talk or Pro Football Focus to see what his grade was, and then you're like, oh, I guess he played better than I thought he did. Like, I'm getting tired of doing that, man. Like, great defenders don't need to be measured statistically. You walk away after watching that game saying, dude, that dude wrecked shop tonight. And Nick Bosa doesn't wreck shop quite like he used to. It wasn't a good game plan, that's for sure. And no one's gonna use this night to talk about what a good year Kyle had. That's for sure, John.
Well, in a game like this, and I thought he blew the Buffalo game too, and yeah, it was snowing and it was crazy, but you were hearing Collinsworth during that game saying, get the ball outside, kind of get a running start. There's certain ways. His dad coached in Denver. He knew how to play in that stuff, but they didn't look prepared in that game. They didn't look prepared in this game. They knew the rain was coming. They're not stupid. So what's your game plan? One time I saw him swing a ball out to Guerrero in the flat, who was already going. So he's got momentum going forward, and that's how it should have been in the Buffalo game. And now other guys are trying to get their grip. They're trying to, grip their tires to the ground and make plays and have leverage, and they can't. And Guerrero did. And why isn't the light going off in your head? You didn't have a game plan for the weather. And I know it's not easy, but the Rams just said, look, you and I talked about this at halftime. Who are going to be the mutters? The Rams ran it 38 times, and it's not like they were dominating the game up 3 touchdowns when a team runs like that. 38-19 running the ball. You've got to figure out ways. Shorter passes. The rain's going to screw you up. Okay, we got to do shorter, quicker hitters, run after the catch kind of stuff. Things down the field aren't going to work. How many balls did Brock throw down the field and then hit? He didn't, because it's difficult in that kind of weather to complete long passes. He got the 33-yarder to Kittle, and outside of that, he missed a lot of them. He just missed a lot of throws, 14 to 31.
Yeah, that is the opposite of efficiency. And the man is usually a model of what is he, 20 of 25 just last week?
Right.
Again, I'm just tired of every loss being a relitigation of whether Kyle is good at this or not. Good coaches can have bad games and bad seasons, and I'm going to wrap this up. I will also tell you that going to the playoffs, every other year over an 8-year span is the NFL equivalent of that was pretty damn good. Okay, not a lot of teams can say that. Not a lot of coaches or franchises can say that in the last 8 playoffs, we've appeared in 4 of them, reaching the Super Bowl in 2 of them. So, the stat that you're using to disparage Kyle is also a stat that I would go to explain he's better than what you've seen this year. Again, had Jimmy Garoppolo hit Emmanuel Sanders on that fucking pass,
I know, right?
We wouldn't have to relitigate this all the time.
You're right, because then he'd be a Super Bowl winning coach, and people would go, just one ring, not even 3 or 4, just one.
If Nick Bosa had tackled Patrick Mahomes on 4th and whatever that was in overtime, that's it. Brock has his Super Bowl. Jimmy has his Super Bowl. Kyle has won 2. The Niners have run into the team that singularly has defined the era twice in Super Bowls. I get it. I get it. Nobody's happy with what you're seeing. There's no way to say that this year was an improvement over last year. But there have been a lot of mitigating factors that I think go into a reasonable explanation of why this did not work. And now if you were to have several of these seasons, then we'd have a problem. Mm-hmm. Small sample size, but extend Drake Greenlaw right now, please. He was awesome tonight. Did he lead the team in tackles? No, Fred Warner had 15. Dre Greenlaw.
He didn't, because he had to come out of the game for a blow for a while there.
Yeah. Dre Greenlaw finished, though, tied for second with Talanoa Hufanga, 8 tackles. He moved great in his first game back from his injury. Shanahan's not getting fired, but it's time to kick John Lynch upstairs and bring in a GM independent of Kyle this offseason. What do you think of that, Lund? Do you think that John Lynch is as much a part of the problem as he is capable of being part of the solution?
Well, once they have the team together, I don't know how that's John Lynch's fault. They're aggressive they're aggressive in trying to go out and get people. They weren't going to make a move at the deadline because they didn't have any move to make. And if you want to base it on this year's draft class, because Guerrendo's a part of that and Mustafa is a part of that. And look, Pearsall hasn't worked out, but the Niners don't pick anybody good in the first round that's not named Nick Bosa. I mean, from the second round on, there's not a better team in the league at picking guys. If you look at this class and put Dominic Booney in there and all these guys, this is a great draft class. So to me, it's not on John Lynch. I know people hate to hear this, and we've talked about it. Injuries this year are an explanation, not an excuse. They just are. And you don't want to hear that, but it's the same reason they were in 2020 after that Super Bowl. If everybody's healthy, and this is maybe what is so frustrating about tonight, because Nick Bosa did return, Greenlaw did return, Hufanga is back. They missed Trent Williams at left tackle. I mean, look at the last play of the game. Look at the last offensive play of the game. Jalen Moore.
Jalen Moore had done a great job up into that last play of the game. Right. He really had.
Look, we can't say it every week, and yeah, we've got to base our discussion on what happened tonight. And offensively, it was terrible. No matter if you want to throw the weather in there as an excuse or not, but the injuries have devastated this team, and there's just no other way to say it. If this team is moderately healthy, because we're talking about football, you're never going to be totally healthy. But if they are moderately healthy, like they were, say, last year, then this is a different story, because this is a really bad to, mediocre to bad division, and they'd probably be up there. And I don't want to hear they should have beat the Rams. They were up 10. They should have beat the Cardinals. They shouldn't have, because they didn't. And there is a skill to closing a game. So I'm not going to sit there, because Kyle has said that numerous times this year, and it drives me through a wall. It's one of my peeves. He said, we should be this, we should be that. Bill Parcells said, you are what your record is. And that's 100% true. There's a skill to closing a football game. And a lot of times Kyle doesn't know how to do it, let alone come back, which he never does.
Thank you very, very much. And I'm telling you right now, I want everybody, when you're done watching this channel tonight, go over and subscribe to John Lund's channel. Give him a notify, follow.
Hey, thanks, man. I appreciate hanging with you, dude.
Thanks for watching. Tune into the Damon Bruce Show live on YouTube every weekday at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific.